Greetings and welcome to another episode of Black Mental Health Matters. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am LaChish J, Rigg, your host. I am an educator and CEO of LJR Training and Coaching. Our topic today is helping teens with traumatic grief. And we have the pleasure of speaking with Miss Steph C. Jones, who is a minister, marriage and family therapist, and mindfulness life coach, as well as Miss Quanari Miller, who is a high school student and a college student. So please stay with us. Welcome, Steph. Welcome, Quanari. Thank you, ladies, for joining today. I'm so glad to have you both here for this super important topic. This is, I believe, my first time having a high school and college student. Let me get it all the way right on the show, and I am so grateful for that. And Ms. Steph Jones, I'm glad that we get a chance to work together again so the listeners can glean from your gems that you always drop. So thank you both. If you could tell the listeners a little bit about yourselves, starting with Ms. Steph, please do so. And then Quanari, please share a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. First of all, I'm always so honored to be on this platform where we're talking about these issues. So my name is Steph Jones, like Calandra on social media, and I'm, as you said, a minister, mindfulness life coach, therapist, and a school counselor in a high school where I was able to really assist teens and see the things they go through: anxiety, grief, insecurities, body dysmorphia. So excited to jump into this topic so that parents can get some understanding on how to help teens who are going through this, educators and teens themselves, right? I'm glad we have Ms. Quanari because we want to hear from the youth. I think a lot of adults do a lot of talking, but we want to hear from the youth so we can know how to support them. So I'm honored to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ms. Steph Jones. 100% accurate. Okay, Quanari, please tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Okay, hi, I'm Quanari Miller. I'm currently in high school and college. What else I was going to say? The reason why I agreed to do the podcast, well, the stream, was because from my perspective, it's not firsthand, no, but it's more so secondhand because I'm able to, like, I'm a student, so I'm going to be around the peers who are experiencing certain traumas or situations, and then I get to see it firsthand how they cope and deal with it. Sometimes if we're close, they'll give me insights on what's going on and how they plan on dealing with the situation, or how they end up picking up negative coping skills, or how they go down a wrong path. So you're able to see it, and sometimes if I'm able to, I can give them advice to kind of advert them from that path. But for me, I really just feel like you really get like more hands on and a lot more experience from my perspective, since teens are more prone to come to more teens in their peer group, and they're going to just share more, try to get more understanding as why what's going on in their life and why is it happening to them. So I'm just glad that I'm able to share this with you guys.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I just have to brag on Quanari real quick. She was one of my students, as I believe I mentioned. I'm also an educator. And Quanari is not only like super intelligent, but she is so caring. So, needless to say, she's here to give some insight, as she said, secondhand, and just, help everyone have a better understanding of how to help teens with traumatic grief. So, thank you again, ladies. So, let's just jump right into talking to the people. And Steph, can you explain what traumatic grief is and how it differs from typical grief?
Yeah, so they do slightly vary. Since we're talking about teens, I'll use an example that a teen would possibly go through. So traumatic grief would be if a high school student or a youth had a sudden death in their family, like if their mom suddenly died or a friend suddenly died, and it is something that happens unexpectedly. If your house burns down, it's not like if I know or a teen knows that their grandmother has cancer and is maybe in hospice, and they are knowing that she might pass away. You can kind of prepare yourself. This would
Mhm.
be if that said grandmother passed away from a traumatic car accident. So the
Mm,
usually happens suddenly, so it catches you off guard, and it has longer lasting effects than regular grief.
okay,
Yeah.
right. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing that, Steph. Kanari, from your observations at school, how does traumatic grief impact teenagers? What are some of the things you've seen? You mentioned that sometimes they might share things and they might behave certain ways.
Well, I know for sure that traumatic grief can significantly impact teenagers by affecting their academic, social functioning, and also their emotional skills,
Mm,
because they're dealing with like a lot of intense emotions such as sadness, anger, especially anxiety. They're
mm,
going to have difficulty in concentrating, of course, which could really create like a downfall in their school performance. Like example, let's just say a teenager who loses like a close friend or something. It's just they're going to come like more withdrawn, lose interest. They're more detached from school than they were before. So it's like they're losing interest in like a lot of activities they once enjoyed. They have trouble focusing in class, interacting with teachers and students. It could really
mm,
just cause a really emotional turmoil and it could lead to like declining grades, also like social isolation, behavior changes as they're trying to process their grief. So it's like a lot going on at once with them.
wow, Steph.
I can
She,
log off. I
I'm,
can log off
she
because
stole the
Canary,
show for both of us, really. I told you
I'm
she's
out.
smart now. I told you she's smart. So she's on it. Thank you for sharing that,
You're
Kanari,
welcome.
Nari. Steph, what are some common signs now? Kanari just already told everybody, so I'm sorry, sorry, not sorry. She's smart like that. But if you can
Yeah.
just add some additional insight to what she shared, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, in addition to what Nari said, so she was able to give it from the perspective of like her seeing a peer going through that. As you mentioned, Nari, that you see it as secondhand. You can tell when your friends or peers are going through something. From a counselor or adult perspective, we see the same things.
Mhm.
We see withdrawn just in everything, right? In academics, spending more time in the counselor's office, right? That's a reality. You're finding every reason to be outside of class. Unexpected crying outbursts, unexpected anger outbursts, just completely removed. You're really isolated. You're not hanging with your normal group of friends. You're not connecting. Of course, homework is slacking. I mean, that's what we see from that end, and also uh, an acting out, right? It could be in any form, right? That a teen is doing things that they wouldn't normally do, right? But that is how the traumatic grief is being expressed in them. So we're
Mhm.
seeing skipping class, skipping school,
Mhm.
substance abuse, right? Different, provocative behavior. All that ties into really the reality that they're going through something. So that's kind of what we look out for.
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, so all right. All right. So how does traumatic grief affect a teen's mental health and their daily functioning? If you could sort of add something to that as well, Steph, please. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. I mean, I think we're just reiterating, and I like that it's being repeated over and over again so that we can
Yeah.
understand. I want to preface it by saying that I do strongly believe that a lot of teens' feelings are overlooked, are discarded, are pushed under the rug. Oh, they're just being dramatic. Oh, what do they know about, struggles? Wait until you have bills. I've heard all those things, right? Wait until
Yeah.
you have bills. Wait until you have a mortgage to pay. Wait until you have a car note. Like, we're disregarding what they're actually going through. So if I'm a teen, or a teen is going through a bad breakup, in their reality, that is the worst thing that is happening to them. No, they don't know about being late on a mortgage payment. No, they don't understand that, because in their reality, that's what they're going through. So we have to put that in perspective, that we make sure not to disregard or push their feelings under the rug because it's not up to our level. So I tie all that into, I mean, it truly triggers something in the brain where you are not able to function normally. So if we're talking about in the home, if we're talking about in the school, you are withdrawn to the point where you are repeatedly thinking about the traumatic accident that happened or the traumatic loss that happened. You're not traumatic grief. It can be so diabolical sometimes because you're not necessarily even thinking about the person that you lost. You're thinking about the accident, you're thinking about the event that happened, and that is what is replaying in the mind. So if it was a traumatic car accident and someone was lost instantly, you're not really thinking about the person. That's what makes the distinction as well. You're just seeing the car smash, and you're creating all these scenarios. So of course that will affect your daily function.
Of
You
course.
might be trying to answer a question in class,
Mm.
image of a car crash pops in your head and you freeze, and your teacher and your fellow classmates are like, what's going on? So it
Right.
stops your daily function. You don't want to shower.
Mm.
You don't want to get out of bed. You don't
Yeah.
want to eat. You,
Right.
you, those are things that affect your daily functioning. And it's because you're in that repetitive loop of traumatic grief.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. And also, too, I was hearing that, sometimes as adults, we want to say, like, what are you're not going through anything, right? You don't have bills to pay or things of that nature. But to your point, in that moment, in their stage of life, that is a lot to them. So meeting them where they are and helping them to process that and is very important. That's part of what I'm hearing that I thought was a very good point. So thank you so much for sharing that. So Quanari, what are some ways that parents, teachers, counselors, and other trusted adults can actually support teens dealing with traumatic grief from your observations as you shared, some of your friends experiencing that?
What they can do, like as a group, they can provide a safe space for them to express their emotions, offer
Mm-hmm.
consistent emotional support, also while encouraging healthy coping mechanisms. Like for instance, let's say a school counselor can regularly check in with them, guide them through expressing their feelings. Also, like while parents can maintain open communication, they can also like create a comforting environment at home. So when they're home, they're not really like soaking in their grief. Like you know how some kids they tend to do like new things or go to new places to avoid going home when there's something going on at home, or
Mm-hmm.
they're experiencing like the loss of a family member. When they go home, like they should not have to be surrounded by it. They should just try to like make the environment more, I don't know, I'm not gonna say pretend to be happy, but you can just make it like if you want to grieve the person, you can grieve them in a positive way. You guys could like reminisce on all the positive memories, the fun times you guys had, or whatever, instead of just making everything always like sad or whatnot. Because it
Mm.
with that, it's going to make them like be more resistant when it comes to staying at home, which would cause kids to want to run away, hang out all night, and that's where all the unhealthy mechanisms comes in at. So I feel like that's a really big one. Also, teachers, they can offer like flexibility with assignments and be attentive to the team's need. I'm not saying like, oh, you don't have to do an assignment. No, but they can just be like, okay, well, I want to give you more time because I know you're going through this. And if I rush you on this assignment and you fail, it's just going to be more on your plate that you don't need right now. So honestly, I just feel like just making sure you're collectively supporting and networking teams to feel less alone and more equipped to navigate their grief. I feel like it'll make it more easily accessible for them to really accept their feelings and really go through the stages of grief without having to skip or pretend they don't care, just stay in denial, because that can go on for years and years, and you just never know what that can do to a person.
Oh my goodness, Quanari, everything you said is just so, yes, snaps and claps, which is something that I like to do in my class. Well, you remember
I haven't heard that in so long.
Oh, you haven't heard that in so long, right? But just to celebrate when something is just so awesome, celebrate someone or something. And absolutely, I'm hearing supporting the teens like at home and just making them feel comfortable and not just only focusing on the grief so that they could still feel good. Otherwise, if they just come home to sadness all the time, then they might not want to come home. And I'm hearing the flexibility of teachers, of which I definitely am that way. And I encourage other teachers to be that way, to, check in with the students to see how they're doing and, work with them, because we all have something that we are going through. So as I always say, kindness is free, just to be kind and see how someone's doing in general, but especially as it relates to traumatic grief. So thank you for sharing that. Well, she done stole your thunder again. I'm sorry.
No, there's plenty of thunder to go around.
What are some additional ways? What was that? What'd you say, Steph?
No, I said there's plenty of thunder to go around.
Absolutely, yes. We're all just awesome ladies here, and I'm glad that we're doing this show to help people to learn. So please, just what are some additional ways trusted adults can support teens with traumatic grief, Steph?
Yeah, I mean, I really love hearing what you're saying, Nari, because it's a youth voice. Like, we need to hear that. And my brother, who is a math teacher, a high school teacher in Florida, he's on and said he's tuned in. So this is really helpful to hear it from the youth side. Again, adults have done a lot of talking. We've done all the studies, we've done all the lives and all the podcasts, but we exclude the youth voice. So happy to have it included. It's really important that youth are a part of their own healing, right? I can't tell you how to heal. So to what Nari said, I would add, we cannot rush grief. The sometimes tricky part about grief is that it is not a general blanket we can throw on everyone. All three of us have different styles and patterns of grief, and different time frames. What might take me 5 years to get over might take you both 3 years, 10 years, 15 years, right? And it is important that we grieve in a healthy way. I have a good friend, Famaya. She has a grief group, and she always talks about grieving in a healthy way. It's very important to do that. So grief isn't a bad thing. And so sometimes we try to make teens get through it, right? Push through it, buck up and be strong. No, it's okay for them to sit in grief for a minute, because we have to process those feelings. And if we rush that process, and if we just focus on the grief, we'll overwhelm the youth. It's not, I mean, we're adults and we struggle with processing emotions. They're still developing and growing into themselves. We have to be the models of how to handle grief properly. So I would say, don't rush your youth through grief. Let them come to you. Make sure that they know the door is always open. This is educators, this is parents. Make sure they always know that the door is open. Let them come to you. Always have an open door policy, right? In the theoretical sense, that they know that you're a safe space and they can come to you when they're ready. Because if we rush them ahead of time, we're gonna put the grief in back. We're gonna be in rewind and then have to come forward again, right? So that's what I add from my perspective as a counselor. I let students come to me when they're ready. I acknowledge that I've noticed something's going on. So parents acknowledge, educators you can acknowledge that you recognize something is going on, and just, hey, when you're ready to speak, let me know.
Yes.
Yeah.
All of that, like, I'm just taking it all in, and I'm hearing so many gems, so many nuggets of wisdom, which I think between the three of us here, particularly the two of you, because I'm just the host today, and I'm just loving hearing those of you that are speaking on this just drop some gems. Nari knows that I like to drop gems in class, but this is the two of you, and what I'm hearing, Steph, is waiting for the right time for the team to come, because I think sometimes as adults we know that something is wrong and we push, and they need to be ready. What I'm also hearing is taking time, which looks different for everyone in terms of the length of time and just in terms of how they may behave or look and what have you. Because, very well, all of us right here could have experienced grief, and we look differently, sound differently, and what have you. So, but I'm also hearing model the behavior, because sometimes as adults, we rush through grief, traumatic grief. So as we model behavior, and then we're able to then, not rush teens, not rush them to tell us, not rush them through the grieving process, because what I also heard is it's going to come back. If you try to rush someone through like it's all over, then it becomes suppressed, and anything suppressed will resurface in due time.
Yep.
So I'm hearing a lot of good nuggets, and hopefully our listeners that are tuning in, I see a few tuning in. I'm hoping more will join so they can really glean from what is being shared today. So thank you. So Steph, if you could also add specifically, are there specific therapeutic approaches or treatments that work well for teens dealing with this type of traumatic grief?
Yeah, so my favorite modality of therapy is client-centered, right? And it is the concept that everything you need to get over an issue, a barrier that's happening, is already inside of you.
Mhm.
So it is focused on that you are the expert of your own trauma. I can't tell you how to process your trauma. I can navigate the conversation, I can ask pertinent questions, but I think that it's important that we remind the youth that you're the expert on this. You're going through this.
Mhm.
That you can be here. You can know that you have a trusted adult with you.
Yeah.
And if it escalates, then you can look at different modalities like CBT and DBT, which allows you to reshape or reformat
Mhm.
your brain thinking. Right, if you are constantly thinking about a traumatic event,
Yeah.
then modalities will allow you to reshape through several different forms of therapeutic treatment, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes I'm, as a school counselor, I'm like, okay, I'm hoping I can help every student, right? But if you have a
Mhm.
large case, it's impossible. So
Mhm.
there has to be a recommendation that you get professional help, that you
Mhm.
go see a therapist, and that you allow them to help you, right? So parents, don't be afraid to look up those resources and really allow your child to get help. From
Mhm.
sometimes just talking at home isn't enough. You need someone, preferably that they might not know. It's really good to talk to someone who doesn't know you, you
Right.
know, feel freer.
Yeah.
So I would really recommend seeing a therapist or a life coach,
Mm.
really to help navigate um, through some of this traumatic grief, especially for a youth. So get someone who specializes in working with youth. There's a certain personality you have to have, a certain openness, you know.
Mhm.
So when youth are attracted to you and they see your spirit and they know you, so
Mm.
get someone who's tried and true in that, so that your child, educators recommend, therapeutic services to parents. Call the parent up. Hey, I noticed that so and so is going through. Have you thought about this? And give the references and give the resources, so they can get the professional help they need.
Yes, yes. I'm hearing uh, getting someone who specializes in this that the team feels comfortable with,
Mm-hmm.
and really prioritizing this as something to help the team through. And I'm also hearing like a rewiring of the brain in terms of some of the approaches that you've mentioned, because there will be like a stuck on, as you said earlier, what happened, an accident, and sort of negative things in the mind associated with that. So I'm hearing that you're mentioning some of these approaches can help process and help the brain to process some of these things that has been experienced. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Oh my. Okay. All right, people, taking notes, dropping gems here, learning a lot. So Quanari, what role can peer support play in helping teens cope?
So for sure, peer support play a crucial role in helping teens cope with traumatic grief. But
Mm-hmm.
I honestly feel like by providing a sense of belonging, understanding, and shared experience, teens will
Mm-hmm.
often feel more comfortable expressing their emotions with peers who are going through similar losses or just similar struggles in general. Like, for example, a teen who are like grieving with the loss of a sibling might find comfort in a support group at school. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not saying per se, oh, it really depends on the age group, no, but honestly, any person in general, if you can relate, it will help anyway, because at the end of the day they just know they're getting insight from someone who's dealing with a similar thing, so
Mm-hmm.
you're helping them navigate them down this road they've never been down before. So it's honest, it's like, think of it as a helping hand. It's just
Mm-hmm.
someone that helps you as you're going through something, and then they can just connect with others, and then it can lead to them feeling more understood, reduce feelings of isolation, and it can encourage them to share their feelings more openly because it contributes to the healing process. So instead of them keeping everything bottled up, they're doing something where they're able to express, let it go, and be able to move on.
Yes. Very, very good. A helping hand. I like that. Someone to walk alongside you. And that is kind of really like a friend, walking alongside you when you're going through anything. So I like how you said that, and just help people to know that they're not alone on having someone there for them. So thank you so much for sharing that, Nari. All right. So for both of you, if you want to start off, Steph, since Quanari just shared with us about peer support, um, how can social media and online communities impact a teen's experience of grief, both positively and negatively?
Yeah, so positively, it can impact a teen's experience of grief because it allows you to find support, right? Much like what Nari was saying, you can find groups, you can look at posts on IG, you can find communities, you can look up therapists who deal with grief, and there's plenty of posts that resonate with you and help you really heal. And in the comments section, there's a whole community of people who are going through. Sometimes reading that someone else is experiencing what you're going through is very healing, right? You know that you're not alone. You know that you're not an isolated island where you're the only one experiencing this. So that can be a positive way. There's groups on Facebook that you can join for good support. Again, seeing the posts. Negatively, social media is interesting, right? Because
Yes.
we see a snapshot of people's life, and we base our lives off of that. And so if
Mhm.
I'm already experiencing traumatic grief, or a teen is already experiencing traumatic grief, and you log on to IG and you look on TikTok and you see someone flaunting this, going to Bora Bora, going to Bali, this, and you're like, why can't I do that? Oh, I wish I could do that. That could lead you further down into the grief tunnel, right? And then you have a harder or a tougher time digging out of that. So it's important that we put into a proper place, like social media's purpose, right? Where okay, it's for entertainment. Yes, we can get support, but we want to make sure that we're not tying ourselves to it, so that if we see something, that it's not dragging our emotions with it. Some people's emotions are knitted to social media. And so when they see something, when something occurs, then their emotions are pulled right along with it.
Right.
So that will make you deeper into grief, because you're looking and you're saying, why couldn't this be me? And oh, how about me? And oh, I can't do this. And
Mhm.
why did this happen to me? And why me? Why me? Why me? And
Right.
you start going
Right.
into that depressive grief, that traumatic
Yeah.
grief. So it's important to put everything in perspective, that we intentionally encourage teens to find, and our youth to find, the positive sides, that if we need to recommend IG pages or, a TikTok stream where it's like this person's talking about it and how to cope and how to get, there's millions of things everywhere, right? We have to make up in our minds that we're going to use it for a positive, because a negative will lead us further to a place that it's going to be very hard to come from. So those are just a few examples, plenty more, but we have to be very mindful, very careful of how we're tying ourselves to social media.
That is so well said. I have nothing to add or take away. That is just so well said. I'm gonna pass it over to you, Quanari, for anything, if possible, to add to that, because Miss Steph Jones just let everybody know that's really what happens. But go ahead, Quanari.
Yes, that's definitely true. Like, negatively, social media can expose teens to triggers. It can also remind them of their loss in different ways. They might compare their grieving process to others, which can make them feel pressure to move on faster, as if like we mentioned before. It can also lead to negative coping skills like seeking attention in unhealthy ways and withdrawing from in-person support, which can lead to like depression and more things, which also falls under the lines of negative coping skills. Positively, social media, it can offer like a platform to connect with others who have experienced similar losses by providing a sense of community and validation, which you would seek in person as well. And then, like, for example, they could be grieving like their parent, and they can find more peace in an online grief support group, like you guys just mentioned. So where they can share their feelings, get advice, and receive encouragement from peers who understand their pain. So it's like a hit or miss with social media. It really just depends on what path you choose to go down.
Yes, that also very well said. And from listening to what both of you are saying about the social media, as well as some of the other things we've touched on, it sounds like creating that balance for the support you need as a teen. So like a peer, in person, in real life, that can hold your hand. And then, having some supportive Facebook groups. So kind of like focusing on the support and how to get it, and straying away from those, unhealthy things that can be found on social media that can make us feel bad. Creating that balance is what I'm hearing from both of you. Have the peer support, go to supportive communities on social media, and doing it like that will be likely more helpful for you in this journey. That's what I'm hearing. A bit of what I'm hearing both of you say, and that's really powerful and really helpful for people to zero in on. So thank you for that.
Ultimately, it's a boundary that you're setting up.
Yes.
It's a safety net that you're setting up. And you're putting a boundary in place so that you're not walking into deeper levels of grief. So you're making sure that you're doing everything in your power. That awareness is key. So it's a boundary above everything else.
I love that you brought up, before we move on to the next question, Steph, boundaries. Like, boundaries in anything in life is so important, especially as we're talking about traumatic grief. But being able to know that in the case of social media, like, you're only gonna go on things that's gonna provide you support for what it is that you're dealing with. You're going to be mindful, and I like to say intentional, is one of my favorite words, about not navigating to spaces where you know that it's going to be very depressive. It's going to make you feel like, well, why can't I be going, as you said, to Bora Bora or insert any other place? Or why can't I have racks on racks on racks, or stacks, or whatever you call money now? Why can't I?
Money on.
Well, money. Oh, that's okay. I can't keep up. Nari, what y'all call money now? Why can't I have some money and do what I want to do? Why I gotta be sad? So what y'all? You
They call money chicken. It's
chicken?
very ghetto.
Stop! Oh my, I can't. That don't even make no sense. Let me make it. But anyway, but yes, being mindful and intentional of going to receive the support. Now it's gonna be in my head. Chicken. No. What? I don't receive that.
No, we reject that.
I reject that. But no, on a serious note, possible to get this back on a serious note. We can go on social media, especially teens experiencing traumatic grief, and they can go and find things that are not helpful, and depressive. But what would be helpful is to be mindful and intentional to go on these things that are supportive, which can be helpful. Like you said, Nari, it's the path that we choose to take. So I love that you said setting boundaries is very important. That's so important. All right, so how can we, Steph, raise awareness and improve education around traumatic grief to better support teens in our communities?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to what I was saying before, making sure we acknowledge the feelings, that we're not disregarding or discrediting or devaluing all those words that make teens feel like I just can't share because they don't care, or they're going to say, you don't have it as bad as da, 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 da. There are starving kids in Africa. Like all these phrases.
Right. Like, that's not even a comparison. We're not talking about that. We're talking about my grief right now. I love that you said that. Like, no, whoever's doing that, we as collective, we need to stop doing that to kids. That's not how
we need to stop that expeditiously.
I know you've had that too growing up. Like, oh, why you complaining? There's, like you said, starving kids in Africa, or you ain't got this bill to pay or whatever. I know all that, but I'm trying to get some help right now for me, please. So I love that you said that. It's so true.
It's true. Or I walk to school barefoot, 15 miles.
Yes.
All these stories, right?
Okay, don't let me get into Pat's one. I don't know if the people know all of that yet. With my big bag, I walk 15 miles.
And
really?
No shoes.
No shoes.
In the rain, in a blizzard, but you're in a Caribbean island. So anyway, I'm going to stay focused.
That's for another show. We're for another show.
So in a reality, in a real way, we have to stop disregarding the feelings, and we have to stop overshadowing, right? We have to stop overshadowing our youth's feelings with our own. And because that's kind of inching up on narcissistic tendencies, that I'm going to see your grief and I'm going to one up you. We don't have time for that. The suicide rate among our youth is so high, it's off the Richter scale, because they don't find safe spaces. And when they do muster up the courage to share, all their feelings are disregarded, overshadowed. It's like the sun coming out and you just stand in front of it and you're shadowing over their emotions, right? How do we raise awareness? By being aware that we pay attention, that we come out of our own selfish bubble, and I'm just being very honest,
right?
And that we pay attention to what our youth are going through, that they are our future, our next generation, and that if we're not pouring into them, the next future leaders of the world, our society is going to be crumbling even more than it is, just in a real way, right?
Right.
Educators and schools, listen, principals, administrators, it is very important that we do PD on the emotional things that our students go through, all the way from pre-K, all the way up to high school and beyond, right? Where we are knowing what to look out for.
Yes.
And this goes for the church too, right? Because we have to cover all aspects.
Yes.
That church knows what to look for, that our leaders, our pastors, our lay ministers, our ministers, apostles, bishops, high prelate, whoever, you know what to look for in a youth who you've seen vibrant and happy and helping out. And then there's a sudden switch, right? And you notice, and don't say it's the devil. I want to be very honest.
Yes.
Let's not do that. Let's not discredit their feel. Oh, that's no, there's something really going on. We have to make sure that we address it properly so that our teens and our youth are not going further into the darkness. So PD is very important in an educational setting, in a church setting, in a home setting. Parents, there are multiple resources. Google is everywhere in every country, every nation. You can look up resources. If you really want to help your youth and your students, your children, there are resources. You have to take the initiative and look up those resources, that you make sure you're intentional. I'm using your word from before.
Yes.
Intentionally seeking out systems and ways that can improve the education, that you get educated at home. Educators, you do your PD. There's often free PD. You pay for PD because it's super important to support our teens in that way.
Yes. Oh my goodness. So the learning about what to look for through the professional development, aka PD, is so important. I love that you mentioned not just in schools but in churches, and it's not just the devil in ways that many of us know to be kind of like a blanket, just kind of shuts you down and silence you. But going back to what you said, the one up, that was really powerful, because I feel that historically, many of us have experienced that, well, I had to go through this and this and this, but it's, as you were saying, being aware, how to raise awareness is being aware and not just focused on whatever you as the parent, teacher, whoever, trusted adult went through, and kind of comparing that like it's a competitive one up, but being aware of what it is that the teen is going through, which you can have an understanding of what to look for through the PD. But once you get that education and you now know what to look for, then actually look for it and actually take the time to listen to the teen without this sort of competitive, narcissistic nature. Hear them out, and that then could make the difference of them growing in a healthy way and being productive citizen, happy, healthy person, to them just like, well, you know what? I just can't talk to you. Parents just don't understand. And, whoever else, adults just don't understand. Because that's, from my own experiences looking back, I was like, well, I'm not talking to y'all because you're going to just tell me just, pray about it and keep it moving, which I would pray about it, but that's not it. That's not just it alone. So
they need help.
Absolutely. So 100% what you're saying is so on point. What advice, and you kind of touched on it a lot as far as getting professional development and being being aware of what the teen's going through, but anything else you would add as far as advice to give to someone who's unsure how to approach a grieving teen, Steph?
Yeah, I'm a visual person, so just while I'm seeing the question, I am thinking of when I watch all these videos on Facebook and Instagram of like dog rescues and cat rescues, and a dog has been on the street for a while and they've been through a lot of trauma, right? And the person who was approaching them is so soft and gentle. They have turned all their emotions down. They're not like, hey, you get over here. We have to approach teens in the same way, in that same concept, that we have to turn all our emotions down. And that even if we're getting frustrated because we want them to be resilient and be strong, we're in a different generation now, right? Our youth are not going through the same things we did. There's a level of security that they have that we might not have had, right? So that changes how you see and view life and how you deal with trauma. So if you've never really been through anything, then traumatic grief is going to just take you down and take you out. We have to approach them in such a way that they are not scared off. That we can take our emotions off. The only emotion that we want to display is empathy. That I'm here with you. I might not have experienced what you did, but I'm here with you, and I'm a trusted resource. I'm not going to yell at a teen. I'm not going to be frustrated, rolling my eyes. Oh, why aren't they getting this concept? I'm going to be patient. This is what parents, educators, pastors, youth leaders, like everyone has a responsibility, right? To approach with empathy. Let empathy cover fully. So we're not scaring anyone off and making them regress back into their hole. There are, youth are already like, oh, I don't want to share. You're in your rebellious teenagers. You're like, I can't share with anyone. I'm going to do this alone.
It's not cool to share.
Yeah, it's not cool to share. You want to let them know that it's safe to share and it's very healthy to share. So I want you to feel my empathy. I'm not judging you. I'm not guilting you. I'm not shaming you. We have to be cautious and aware of all those emotions that rise up in us. Oh, man, if I was your age, I would have got over this. We can't approach it like that.
That's not healthy or helpful. That's not healthy.
Not healthy or helpful. It's counterproductive, actually.
Yes,
approach a teen with full empathy. You should have an armor of empathy from your head down to your toes. Be covered in full empathy. They know I'm not being judged. They're not about to shame me because I'm going through this and it's taking me longer to process it. But I know that this is a safe place. And whenever I'm ready to speak and talk, I know that they're going to hear me. And I know that they're going to be a resource to help me.
Absolutely. So, Nari, is there anything that you want to add to advice to give, just based on your peers and maybe advice that you've already given, or anything that you'd like to share to that? Because I agree, empathy is so important. And I know some students are good with that as far as empathy towards their peers, but I also observe some students not so empathetic these days to their peers. So what advice would you give?
Honestly, I would just tell them to be patient with themselves and the others around you.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in a family who's all grieving, I would honestly don't be selfish with your grief. Like, don't say, "Well, I'm hurting more than you because we've been closer," or don't say anything don't say any of the trigger factors that could just basically signify what you're going through does not matter because I'm going through it too. So I honestly feel
Mm.
like just making it a space where everyone can collectively come together
Yeah.
and share their grief, move on, and just learn how to, I'm not going to say restart your life, no, but just learn how to move on, or you're not going to have that person with you anymore, but just be glad that you were able to have them in your life anyways. So don't take it as a negative factor, as if, oh, they left me. Because I noticed that about teens too. Like when someone passes away, they always be like, oh, why did you leave me? Why did you have to go? Like, just try to keep a positive attitude as much as possible. Even if you feel like you can't keep a positive attitude about it, just know it's nothing to take personal. Like, don't feel like, because some people too, they get survivor's guilt in the most extreme situations. It could be something, it could be someone could pass away from a health condition that was hereditary. They will still get survivor's guilt and feel like that should have been me on that table. That should have been me. Like, just know it's nothing to take personal when it comes to something surrounding death, and to just maintain open communication, check on all your peers, make sure no one's being left out, and just have those daily check-ins. I'm not saying surround your life around making sure everyone's okay. No, of course, but just do what you want someone to do for you when you're experiencing grief. That's what I'll say.
Oh my goodness. And I'm sure you want to say something that, but let me just say all of what you just said is so powerful, Nari. I'm hearing being patient. That right there is so powerful, because I feel like in our society, teens and adults alike are lacking in patience in a general sense, as well as empathy lacking as well. So being patient, knowing that, as we said earlier, it's going to take time. Different people, it looks differently as far as the grieving process. And I love how you were saying, don't be like, okay, well, I'm hurting more because I was closer. That's not helpful or healthy. I don't know, that's like my phrase right now. That's not helpful or healthy to be like that. So I love that you brought that up. And like I said, just taking time. And one of the last things you said was so powerful too, but I'll let Miss Steph chime in if she wanted to give any light to what Nari just said, because I think it's just so powerful.
Super powerful and super profound.
Mm.
The survivor's remorse, man. I was like, what?
Yes,
Like
I told you she's smart.
being aware of that and being so
Mm.
just so sensitive to that, it
Yeah,
springs up out of nowhere. That
mhm,
survivor's guilt, that survivor's remorse, and it increases in levels depending on how close you are to the person.
yeah,
Like if it's a sibling, if it's a immediate family member, you really feel that swelling up in you. That will send you down a spiral. So awareness is key when dealing with this type of grief. You have to be aware, and we have to watch out for the traps and the pitfalls that we could find ourselves in, that we're like, this could happen. I'm educating myself, I'm looking at the resources online, I'm checking in with my counselor, maybe I need to go see a therapist. But we're aware, okay, this could happen, hoping that this live is really opening people's eyes, what to look out for. Okay,
mhm,
man, I am noticing this with my student, I am noticing this with my teen at home. All this stuff is pertinent and relevant information that we now pick up and take and say, okay, I just heard this, I know you're going through this. Do you
Mm.
have, you could check in. Do you have survivor's remorse? Do you
Mm.
reassure them it wasn't your fault. There's nothing you could have done. Like, we start blaming ourselves. So that
Yes.
was really profound, Nari, and like
Yes.
on point.
I
On point.
agree. I agree. That was definitely one of the profound things that she said that I was trying to recollect. And another powerful thing that comes to mind that you shared, Nari, is that of um, not feeling like someone left you. And I feel like, especially as younger people, teenagers, and just young people in general, prior to a certain level of adulthood, when you can process people leaving, whether leaving out of your life or passing away, but just leaving. But when you're a younger person, like even just thinking back and recalling in my life, you feel abandoned, right? You feel abandoned if someone walks out of your life, even if it's just say a friend that was a friend and now he or she's not your friend anymore, a
Yep.
boyfriend, girlfriend. I feel like at that sensitive teenage age, anyone that leaves is like a feeling of abandonment. So I love that you brought that up. And I love that you said, like, try not to look at it that way, take it personal and try to be positive. So I'm hearing kind of what I heard earlier from Steph as far as like a rewiring of the brain, right? Our brain will typically go, especially as teenagers, to, well, they left us. And what am I going to do now? And you're not here anymore, as opposed to, as I believe you said earlier, Nari, think of kind of like the good memories when you talked about how people can be supportive in the home, not just be sad, but maybe try to remember the person, in the case of someone passing away, and the good stuff about them. And I feel like doing that and other ways to help the brain to be in a positive space can help in that grieving process. So I love that you said, like, don't take it personal and try to be positive. It's not going to be like every day you're able to do that, but to the extent that we can practice that level of understanding, not to take it personal, as well as that positivity, that can be helpful in the sort of process, this grieving process journey. Anything y'all wanted to add to that? Because I just felt like that was so powerful, everything that you said. And again, so happy that you're here because you really give voice, Nari, to teens. Yes. Awesome. Okay, so what resources or final thoughts would both of you like to share with our audience who may be supporting a grieving teen? Any one of you can go ahead and share first, whoever's so inclined to have thoughts on their mind.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So there are a lot of local resources that can be found right online, but definitely talking to your student or your child's counselor or student adjustment counselor, however it is in your state, city, town. Um, Ask them for resources and let them know, because educators and parents have to come together to support our youth. It's just a reality, right? They can't work in two separate lanes. So if a parent is noticing something, that you want to make sure to reach out to a teacher, to a school counselor, and that if an educator or the school counselor or the psychologist is noticing that something's going on, that you want to reach out to the parent and share pertinent resources, local resources where there are teen groups, right? Often they are free, right? There are groups for teens going through anxiety, high and severe stress, traumatic grief, and these facilities and places are put in place for teens. So it is cultivated and it is fashioned and it is all directed toward helping teens. That's an initiative that we have to take, right? It's not just going to fall into our lap. If we're saying that this is important to us, then we take the initiative. There is a resource called the National Child Traumatic Stress Network.
Okay.
That is online. It's literally called that. Actually, I'll drop the link to it in the chat.
Oh, please, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, and it's really helpful. And I'm just gonna drop it right here. It's super helpful in getting resources to assist, to help dealing with teens who are going through that traumatic grief, right? It gives tips, all the resources you need, and it really opens your eyes to different things. So it's super important that we're looking up these things. Sometimes it's hard to say, oh, I mean, we're in different states, we're in different locations, so the recommendation I give is find your local resource and
Okay.
also this national one, because it gives tips and it kind of gets your feet wet in it, so you know how to even approach a professional. Hey, I noticed that my child is dealing with this, or an educator. Hey, I noticed that my student is dealing with this, and you can kind of list out some of the symptoms and some of the side effects that you're seeing. Um, and I guess for a final thought, I mean, I'll have multiple, but I know the time is winding down. I'm just reiterating that we have to listen to our youth.
Mm,
Time is up for disregarding. I'm going to keep saying that until I don't have any more breath in my lungs.
agreed.
That we have to listen to our youth. They've been screaming and crying, maybe not with their words, but with their actions, right? We're looking at posts, we're looking at concerning things that are going on, and we're just like, oh, they're fast, or oh, they're promiscuous, or oh,
Mm,
they're going through something, right? And I want to say this to teens who are tuning in now and who will tune in later. If you see your friend, your peer posting things that are not like them,
mm-hmm.
there's a responsibility to check in with them. Like, oh, I don't
Absolutely.
want to get into business. Real love is asking people, are you okay? Like, because I just saw this
Absolutely.
post, sounded a little off.
Yeah.
Check in, right? Be aware, take the blinders off, and
Mm.
focus on our friend circles, our social circles, and check in, and really make sure that we're tapping into the multiple resources that are there.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that resource and dropping it in the chat. And then also, I just echo what you said in terms of we have to listen. We have to listen to what they're saying and offer support in the various ways that both of you have shared today. And I love the whole, if your friend is posting something or saying something or whatever, check in if that's your real friend, because I feel like too often I just hear like sometimes little side commentary in class. It's like, oh well, they're gonna do whatever, they're gonna do you, boo, or whatever. But if it's like you're really your real actual friend, we gotta learn how to say something, see something, say something, to the person. Do it in a way that's not gonna obviously, make them feel bad or whatever. Like, just come to them. I feel like sometimes, from what I observe, people feel kind of scared to say something because they don't want to like offend nobody, make anybody. Hey, oh well, offend the person, not like literally do it on purpose. But even if you feel like asking is going to, it's better you try to help your friend than something bad happens and then you're really gonna feel bad. Right? That's really what I want to add to what you said. So please, I agree with you 100%. If it's really your friend, if that's not your friend, then hopefully they'll know better to pick some better friends, real talk. But if that's really your friend, then you see them acting some kind of way that is out of their character, please talk to them. They actually need somebody. And I want to hear what both of you have to say before I hear some of your thoughts, Nari, is we need someone to come to us, even if we may not be ready to talk. We need someone to do that acknowledging, like you said earlier, Steph. Because when we're going through something, grief in a general sense, specifically traumatic grief, we're not going to be drawn to go and talk to someone about what it is. We're going to be withdrawn, as was shared earlier. So it is helpful for someone to actually acknowledge, be like, even if it's just, I'm here for you. Those comforting words could just be like just a sweet, refreshing thing to someone that feels alone. So I love that you said that, Steph. If it's your friend, say something brief. You don't have to say a lot, but just say something to let them know they are not alone. With that said, Nari, what resources or final thoughts would you like to share with our audience?
So my final thoughts would be, when supporting a grieving teen, I honestly feel like it's important to approach with compassion and sensitivity, like was mentioned earlier. Honestly, like we said before, acknowledge their pain and avoid minimizing their feelings or offering like cliches. Also, be patient, as their emotions, like they can change very frequent. They're going through a lot, so you don't know what you're going to get. And grief can manifest in many ways. So encourage them to express their thoughts through talking, writing, art, or other outlets that can feel comfortable. Like what we used to do in Miss LaChish class, we would do like journaling. We would do every morning would come in, just journal down. We would be giving like a journal prompt. Then at the bottom, we would just say how we feel at the moment. So it's like it's a really good outlet. Even if you're not into journaling, just being able just to say that, just you just don't know what it can do. Especially when you want to go back and read it, you can really see like, wow, this is really how I felt this whole week.
Yes.
So that's really how I can. And also like just keep communication open, offer gentle guidance towards like professional support when it's needed, because our role is not to fix their grief, but to walk alongside them and provide a steadying and caring presence during the difficult time. Because grief is really grief is like a deeply personal journey. So there's no right way or timeline for healing. Because like she said before, what could hurt her could take her 5 years to recover, and it could take others more or less. You just don't know how it is. So we really have to just be present and listen without judgment,
Yes.
even when the emotions are difficult to hear, and just encourage healthy coping strategies. You don't know, it can be honestly anything, because your support, understanding, and consistent presence can make a significant difference. And it can help navigate them through this challenging time, because you just never know. Like, you never know what that person could be thinking at that time. They're very vulnerable, they can be very impulsive. You just don't know. So just keeping like just letting them know like I'm here. I'm not here to force you or make you say or do
Right.
anything. Just know like my support is here when you need it.
Oh my gosh, I love all of that. The compassion, the walking alongside, as mentioned earlier, the grief taking different times, so just, being there. And you took me back to journaling. I love my girls. I love y'all, and just always want to make sure that I check in with you every day, no matter what you're going through. So thank you for kind of bringing my memory back to that. And just thank you for sharing, both of you. Did you have anything else that you wanted to say, Steph? I'm just so grateful for both of you today.
Just briefly, I mean, I really feed off the energy of people, and Nari is dropping gems, and I'm like, yeah.
Yes, right? Oh my gosh, she
We have
is.
to make sure that we are in a right space to help someone with grief. If I'm
Mm,
not equipped, if I'm dealing with my own stuff, I don't have to try to be your savior. So
yes.
if I'm going to walk alongside you, then I have to make sure that I'm healed and whole enough that I won't be impeding your healing process. Sometimes we want to help, but we're not in a place to help. We have to be mindful of that. I'm not
Absolutely.
right. We can't heal you. That we don't have it in you to heal you. We want to be a calming presence. I love that. We're walking alongside you because we're equipped to. That's the dot, 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 because we're equipped to. And if we recognize that we're not equipped to, there's no shame in that. Because if we walk alongside someone who really triggers us or really takes us back to grief and, back to our own trauma, we're
Mm,
no good to them, we're no good to us. It is very hurtful and harmful,
mm,
so I love all of that. And that's what I would just add on to that. Make sure you're in a right space to walk alongside someone. You don't have to. If you can't, that's okay. If you can, great. Make sure you're in a right space so you don't break the healing process or make it take longer than it already is.
Okay, well, thank you so much, ladies, for joining, and thank you to the listeners for listening to all that was shared today. And it's just all so many good gems and nuggets of wisdom that were dropped, and I hope everybody was able to take some things away. So thank you, ladies, so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.